This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 15th, and this is Kathy Neifeld with Agency One, and I am pleased to present our underwriting team, Dennis Bartos, Jessica Karakoff, and Julie Melendez. The subject of this WebEx is the evolving landscape of medical underwriting during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our underwriting department is extremely busy keeping up with all of the updates that are happening in real time from all of the carriers that Agency One is privileged to do business with. This WebEx is going to provide all of you with valuable information regarding what's happening from an underwriting perspective and how you can get cases placed now during this questioning and very concerning time. If you have any questions that arise during this WebEx, please type them in and we will address them at the end of the WebEx. If for some reason we do not get to your question, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the underwriting team and they will be happy to talk with you personally. And with that, I am going to turn this over to my partner and friend, Dennis Bartos. Dennis, take it away.
Dennis is on mute.
Lisa. Dennis.
He's not on mute.
I can't hear him.
Jess, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with just some general updates on some of the things we've touched on so far. Starting with travel, not a whole lot's changed right now due to the country's travel ban. The majority of the care.
Did
Are
you
you
get
there?
me now?
Oh,
This is
there he
Dennis.
is.
Okay, I rebooted this system. Okay, all right. If you all don't mind, I apologize for that. Let me try to start this off. About 10 days ago, we did a national webinar for the AALU. Very similar guidelines out on what changes are occurring in the marketplace and underwriting right now for these carriers. That presentation of just a short time ago has already changed in dynamics. So it's a very volatile situation in underwriting right now. People are more concerned about foreign travel exposure right now. So I'm going to touch on foreign travel. Jess and Julie are going to touch on accelerated underwriting programs and some other items out there. So right now, if I want to focus on the normal people that have had applications into home offices right now and said, for example, I plan on traveling to France in September on a barge cruise. You will be postponed for life insurance protection right now. If you said that on an application and it was truthful, if you've changed your plans and you're no longer going to go to France, then the underwriting can proceed. But if you're changing your answer to the underwriters and you're actually intending to go to France, you've created a contestable situation, and you don't ever want to be in that kind of a situation. The rule right now, and there are very few rules, the rule right now is a good one. If you're going to travel outside the United States or be on a cruise ship, you're probably going to be postponed through the end of 2020. We had a case this morning, preferred best medical underwriting postponed until next April. So it is a volatile market, especially in the foreign travel arena. Okay, Jess?
Okay, I'm going to touch on exposure and infection. Okay, so with respect to exposure and infection, the carriers are taking pretty similar stances. If your client has had a known exposure, they're going to be postponed for about 30 days. There's going to be a lot of questions coming at them around symptoms and whether or not they've been tested. If they've been infected, that postpone period's a little bit longer. We're looking more 30 to even 90 days after symptoms have subsided. Now, this is certainly going to depend on the severity of the infection, and obviously if there is any permanent damage as a result of it. So it's important to manage your client's expectations with respect to infection and exposure. They're going to be asked probably during the underwriting process and certainly at the end before you can collect money, which is actually the perfect segue for Dennis to talk about good health statements and amendments.
Delivery requirements on policies that are going into the field right now. We're seeing virtually every carrier during the underwriting process, at the beginning of the process, in the middle of the process, and even at the end of the process on policy delivery. They're asking for good health statements, and language is being very specific, kind of legalese specific. For example, please confirm whether or not each proposed insured or any household member has within the past 30 days traveled or resided outside of the United States or has traveled by cruise ship or has come into close contact with anyone known to the insured to have tested positive for COVID-19. Those are the kind of good health statements that we're seeing now come down from virtually every carrier. Of course, it's the day and the time. I see this as a temporary situation, of course, but for right now, you can expect good health statements to be signed on delivery on all contracts and to be questioned before any 1035 occurs. Yes? Let me go right into the exams, okay? What's happening now on your exams? Everybody's asking us about waiving of exam requirements. You really need to not talk in terms of waiving underwriting requirements. The life insurance industry is looking for alternatives to the exam process right now, and they have a tremendous amount of tools available to them. You've got the MIB system, you've got the patient portals, you've got script checks. You know, we're utilizing all these things up front, and the carriers are being very receptive at trying to accommodate clients who have had APS records, exams last year, blood profiles, urine testing. Is there any real reason to do an insurance exam? And if the answer is no, then they'll go ahead and approve the case as applied for. We're getting a lot of positive feedback on this, and we call it fluidless underwriting, basically non-medical underwriting, using alternative methods to underwrite. Jess?
Okay, well, probably the biggest changes have occurred in the last 7 to 10 days have been surrounding new changes to the underwriting guidelines at each carrier. What I've put in front of you is basically our internal collection of all of these changes. They're certainly making it a nightmare for all of us. I want to stress that this is an extremely fluid situation, and some of these cells will be changed before we log off tonight. The guideline changes are age specific, rate class specific, and in some instances, medical impairment specific. I've paused on Lincoln here to show you not only have they changed what applications they're willing to look at, but they've also dropped their internal retention from 20 million down to 5 million. They're only using it for up to age 65 and obviously for the most favorable underwriting classes. So what does this do for us? The carriers are still taking business. It just kind of creates a more strategic approach. Now where we typically would look at a case and choose a carrier based on maybe their competitiveness with a particular medical impairment or even product pricing, we now have to couple those factors in with all of these new requirements or new guidelines, which I assure you we are staying on top of very regularly. Julie is going to come up next and talk about some of the new programs, because not all of these carriers are, are tightening everything. Some are actually coming out with some new things. And I'm having a hard time making Julie the presenter.
Yeah, what we're seeing out there, if everyone can hear me, is accelerated underwriting programs that were in place in December have actually been augmented. So companies that had ceilings of $1 million under their accelerated underwriting program are now using alternative underwriting requirements, complete APSs and former exams, and they're increasing their limits to $2 million or $3 million. So we're not really seeing a big pullback in the life insurance arena. In fact, there are many better alternatives available today than there were in December. It's just a different kind of an underwriting arena that we're operating in right now. Jules?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As Jess mentioned, I'm going to talk about a couple of the new accelerated underwriting programs that have just recently come into play. So if we're on our dashboard on agency1.net, we have our accelerated underwriting spreadsheet under the underwriting tab. So we click on accelerated underwriting, and the first program I'm going to touch on is Equitable. This is a temporary program. It's come about just due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's the accumulation streamlined underwriting. These are, in bold red here, these are the products that are considered for this program. If you click on the carrier name, it gives you access to all of the specs on the program, all of the marketing information you need, how exactly to submit a formal application for that program. And then, of course, the eligibility details. It's up to and including age 55, up to and including 2 million. All right, if we go back here. Symetra is another carrier that has just recently introduced a new accelerated underwriting program. This one is actually very, very new. So they don't have any marketing materials specifically out yet, but they are in the works. So as soon as that is made, we will have that updated on the spreadsheet. But just some quick hits here. This is going to be the Equitable program. It's going to be for your healthier clients, the super preferred, standard through super preferred. For ages 18 to 50, it's up to 2 million of permanent coverage, 51 through 60, up to 1 million of coverage. All right. So those are the two newer programs. But in addition to the new programs, we have carriers who are making some temporary adjustments to their already the accelerated programs that are already being used. So going back to our spreadsheet again, you will see for some of the carriers, I have these links here in bold red that are giving you some additional details on these adjustments. So if we're looking just for instance at John Hancock, they have opened up their guidelines a bit for consideration. So if you have someone who is in the 18 to 65 age range who might typically get through their accelerated program and they don't want to have an exam but want to get up to $5 million of coverage, John Hancock would be willing to consider their third-party data, any recent and comprehensive medical records in lieu of that exam. So it's not that, as Dennis mentioned, it's not that they're waiving exams, it's just that they're looking at additional data to potentially approve a case without that insurance exam information. So we also have, just to go through here quickly, Principal is another carrier that has made some adjustments to their accelerated program. So again, in red, bold, there's that link to their updated specs. And I also wanted to point out, we have this executive accelerated underwriting program sheet. These are just a few, there are a few programs available right now. We've highlighted Lincoln, Nationwide, and Pacific Life here. They have some accelerated programs open to executives. So that's something that you should be aware of on the website tool. And not COVID related, we have a new tool and we're working on a video. If you have any clients who need to complete a senior supplement as part of their formal application, we have introduced a prep sheet. This is something that we've been working on, and I know it's been asked for a few times. So we have that up on the website now. And that's, again, just right under the dashboard here under underwriting. It's a senior supplement prep sheet. So if you want to have just some quick tips here of what they should be prepared for and what they can expect during that phone call for the senior supplement. And lastly, I want to point out, if we're in agency1.net and we go right to that dashboard, we have here in very red, very bold print here, the carrier partner announcements for COVID. It's a consolidated list of all of the carrier bulletins. So obviously it would be very cumbersome to go through all of this, but this is just if you wanted to access this information, it's there for you. Otherwise, we are staying up to date with all of this information. We're more than happy to be your resource. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And with that, I'm going to throw it back for any questions for anyone.
Agents keep asking us if the life insurance industry is tightening up. We're not seeing that. They're being careful. They're being prudent. But I think, as you have seen in this very short presentation today, the marketplace is volatile right now. It's changing constantly between the carriers. So it's important that you probably pick up the phone and call us or send us an email or a text or something and tell us the circumstances of your case, and we'll do our very best to put it into the right spot. All right?
We do have a question. Garrett has asked, are carriers trying to incorporate these underwriting alternatives on all cases, or is there still a specific method for application that needs to be done in order to qualify for the program? So I can take that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You answer.
All right. They are still, it's not just open for all. We have some carriers that are, I would say, more proactive right now about using the tools that they already have on hand, the resources they already have in that toolbox, such as certain third-party vendors that they can use to obtain medical records. Ultimately, if they have had a recent exam they have with their primary care physician, or if they have recent labs, comprehensive labs, then it's something that we will proactively try to, see what we can do with that information and potentially work to moving forward without an exam. But those are not guaranteed. So it's just, we're taking the information we have on hand to see what we can do to proactively try to move forward without an exam. But for the most part, carriers are sticking to their guidelines. A lot of them are being a bit more lenient with the information that they can use to approve these cases.
Yeah, and just to jump in, guys, if you have a client that really doesn't want to have an insurance exam, the first two questions that you want to ask are, when's the last time you saw your physician for a physical and had blood work? Or have you been examined for life, DI, or long-term care insurance in the last 24 months? These are the first couple of spots we're going to look for some of that information to satisfy those requirements. When you get into the older ages or the rated situations, well, for one, there's a couple carriers that aren't even looking at those anymore. But otherwise, those aren't scenarios in which they're going to be willing to waive out too much. A lot of what you've seen has been built on top of the accelerated underwriting programs that already incorporate a lot of third-party tools. So keeping that in mind, just a couple additional tidbits. I think I've seen Prue and Hancock really be aggressive in going after kind of that alternative information. And I'd like to highlight that as of right now, 12:21 p.m., Nationwide has not incorporated any new strict guidelines on the applications they'll review. I'll add to that their intelligent underwriting process is conducted. The interviews are conducted by doctors and nurses, so that kind of helps them drill down into medical impairments a little bit better. And so it might give us a better shot at not needing that additional information.
We have a couple of additional questions. I'll start with one. Can you please readdress stacking coverage between carriers?
Who wants it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll take it. 2 weeks ago, we had on our website an opportunity from the accelerated underwriting programs of multiple carriers that were allowing us to stack, which basically meant that I could go ahead and I could put $1 million with Principal and $1 million with Hancock and $1 million at somebody else. Well, that was 2 weeks ago. We pulled that off of our website rather quickly as the market was changing again on us very quickly. The carriers are, for the most part, not allowing the accelerated underwriting programs now to allow stacking. But at the same time, we've rolled over to having carriers increase the face amounts that they will consider. They just don't want to be exposed to multiple stacking opportunities by clients out there. So right now, I wouldn't look at stacking, but I'd look at directing it to the carriers that have the highest face amount opportunities for you if you're in that bracket. There are many alternatives for accelerated underwriting programs now at the $1 million level. So I would look into those first.
All right, another question. Can you discuss cases that are trapped as postponed because of the changes in guidelines? For example, the 61-year-old at table 6, then the guidelines changed and it is postponed. What now?
What now? Well, first thing would be to see if there's a better fit, if there's a carrier out there that would offer a similar rate class with a similar product with palatable pricing. That step one would be to try to move it, find it a new home. Step two would be we're probably going to have to wait it out another couple of months before we can insure the client, at least in the traditional fashion.
Yeah, this was very sudden. We've had several carriers last week come out with brand new guidelines. And while cases were effectively completely underwritten and ready to issue and approve, they've stopped the issuing process because they were above a table 2 or a table 4 or age bracketed where they didn't want to get into that kind of exposure right now. This is a temporary thing, but essentially the cases are in a postponed mode, life insurance carrier not even being allowed to issue. So what Jess is saying is we can look at alternative carriers that are not so restrictive right now and see if we can make it happen. But many of these carriers, there are no exceptions here. They're just not issuing these rated cases right now.
Okay, we have another question that just came in. Do we still have insurance companies that will issue between ages 71 to 85?
71 to 85?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Well, 85 is an issue.
80 to 85 The real
I would say
70.
80. Yeah, I would say over age 80, we're gonna have to talk about that offline. That's a much more difficult situation right now. But there are still plenty of carriers that are looking at the 70-year-old age bracket. Of course, that's depending on how impaired that client is.
Any other questions?
There is one that just came in. How do you feel, this might be a Jessica question, how do you feel about the future of human API? Is it for real?
Is it for real? It is absolutely for real. It is the one data source that I see the carriers outwardly using the most. In fact, they're sending out their own links for clients to connect with their patient portals so that they can receive medical information. Typically, actually, John Hancock and Prudential are two carriers that every day we're getting that notification. This is what I think. I think all of these platforms are still being developed to a degree. If your client has a patient portal, it's worth asking. It's worth attempting to connect. We're not always going to get the information or all of the information we need. But what we get is going to come at a much more rapid rate. We give that to the carrier to couple with their additional third-party data sources, and they want to make decisions based off that. Now, if we're talking our higher level cases, our $10, $20 million cases, that's a different story. They're going to want every T crossed and every I dotted. But for your smaller cases, and certainly under the current global climate, it is worth attempting to get records in a less traditional fashion so we can get them faster. It is definitely real to the person asking the question, but it is going to take some time to fully develop, just like electronic health records.
Absolutely a term you're going to have to become familiar with, patient portal access.
And if you have specific questions with that, please reach out to us. We are contracted with both Human API and Claretto. If you haven't seen press releases on that platform, you will be very soon. They're two of the strongest platforms right now that the carriers are latching onto, and certainly Agency One has latched on as well. So if you have questions specific to how that works, go ahead and reach out to one of us, and we'll be glad to walk you through it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I think we can throw it back to Kathy and Dennis to wrap it up now.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining. I want to end by saying the life insurance industry is open for business right now. We're seeing an uptick in the amount of business that's flowing into Agency One right now. It is being a little bit limited in the over $10 million bracket. We're not seeing as many of those kinds of cases right now in this marketplace because those are primarily face-to-face transactions with people and planners and advisors. So we are seeing an uptick in the accelerated underwriting opportunities that exist out there. We are seeing clients much more interested in buying insurance today. They're concerned about their mortality, and we have opportunities to satisfy that desire to protect them right now. Just stay out there selling, guys. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this WebEx. Again, if you've got any specific follow-up questions, please reach out to your Agency One underwriting team or to anyone else in your that you work with at Agency One. I want to take care of a few housekeeping items right now. We've got another WebEx scheduled for Friday at noon, and this is creative sales ideas using accelerated underwriting in permanent products. We're getting a lot of questions right now to term and what can we place. There are many, many carriers that are still offering permanent life insurance that you can place through the accelerated underwriting platform. Ed Stark is going to lead this WebEx on Friday at noon and talk about the permanent products that are available, case design, and, different sales ideas that you can use to place permanent life insurance right now. And then here is a teaser for next week. We will be sending out an invite on Friday. Next week, we are going to have a 3-part WebEx on indexed universal life insurance, but a very specific opportunity within the IUL marketplace that Agency One is pleased to have access to, utilizing 2 very select carriers. Please look for that invitation, and we hope that you will join us both next week on this 3-part WebEx, and again this coming Friday at noon for the creative sales ideas using accelerated underwriting and permanent product. With that, we're at the 12:30 mark. I want to thank everybody again for participating in this WebEx. I'd like everyone to please remember that our thoughts and prayers are with all of you and your family. We hope everybody is healthy, social distancing, and staying safe. Thank you so much.